Welcome back to State of the FBS. It's time to preview our two college football playoff semifinal matchups. I'm super excited. Both of these games, I think, shape up to be really fun and really entertaining, really intriguing. So we're going to get right into both of these, dive into both of them. But first off, I felt like it was appropriate that in memory of the two teams that will become third and fourth best in the sport, I had the Ferrari shirt on. Sadness. But let's start with the Fiesta Bowl. Number 10, Miami. Number 6, Ole Miss. Two teams that are coming from very different directions into this playoff right now. Miami barely squeaking in, and then they've looked like the second best team in the country behind Indiana since they made the CFP, completely shut down A&M in their own building, and then took down Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. Granted, I think we had a bit of an inflated perception of that Ohio State team through most of the season, but Miami is playing, like I said, better football than pretty much anyone not named Indiana right now. They look extremely strong, especially in the trenches. This Mario Cristobal team, I think, has finally really distilled the essence of what a Mario Cristobal team can be when the game management is actually there and both sides of the ball are working together. You saw in the Justin Herbert years at Oregon, it was never really both sides of the ball at the same time. Procedural issues, not always super locked in. The start at Miami, obviously, it's the infamous Georgia Tech game where they lost on the fumble. And then you slowly start to bring in more and more of this talent and then actually get them coached up well. And now you've built the culture, you've built the identity. This team has such a strong identity of we are going to beat you into a pulp because we are bigger, faster, and stronger than you are. And we're also going to outwork you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And they've repeatedly done that when they play at the level that they've shown they can in the playoff. When Miami is playing its best, they might be the most intimidating team in the country. Look at the way they played versus Notre Dame, these two playoff games. I know the SMU loss is not great, the Louisville loss is not great, but I think that it's fair to say they were kind of checked out for those two games. They were not playing even their B- game, I don't think, in those games. And teams can make you pay when you do that. And granted, it's on you to beat those teams to put yourself in the best position to where you're not on this bubble coming in, but now that Miami's gotten in, it's clear the moment is not too big. They are rising to the occasion. They're playing incredibly well. And I think a lot of the props has to go to the coaching staff. They've done an exceptional job keeping these guys to where it's not, oh man, everyone's doubting us. We got to go out and prove the doubters wrong. It was because we snuck in as a lower seed. No, the attitude for Miami has been, yeah, we're better than you. And we're going to prove it for 60 minutes. And we're going to punch you in the mouth. And you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And two teams now have felt that from Miami. Extremely, extremely strong play from the Hurricanes. So the question now is, can you do the same thing versus Ole Miss? And Ole Miss, the weak point of this team on the defensive side is by far their run defense. They really struggle to, I wouldn't say they struggle playing gaps down, but they struggle to move guys off the ball. You can get push up front versus Ole Miss. And you come in as Miami, one of the best offensive lines in the country, led by Francis Mauigoa, a potential top 15 pick in this year's NFL draft. You have a guy that big and that physical, an entire line of just dudes. And then behind him, Mark Fletcher, who has been running out of his mind through the playoffs so far. Two exceptional games, and I think Miami is only going to put more and more on him, or at least try to, as they move forward. So if you're Ole Miss, you have to start with stopping Fletcher and stopping the run. If you can do that, make it all on Carson Beck, I think that's where you open Miami up to mistakes. Carson Beck has been good down the stretch. If we're being honest, he has not really been a detriment to this Miami team, which I think what some people were worried about when Miami got into the playoffs is, is Carson Beck going to hold them back? He has not done that so far. He's done exactly what he needed to do. I know the passing numbers have not been astounding, but they don't need to be when you're running it through everyone's face. So the question is, if you can't run it through someone's face, what do you have in the passing game? And I do think Beck is maybe a little bit better player than he gets credit for, although I am still concerned in the big moments if it really is down to you need a big-time throw from Carson Beck, the interception issues. It's a big issue for Carson Beck in these big-time games. We've seen it time after time. Can he temper down? Can he relax? Can he fit into this moment and play good football when Miami needs him? I think his receivers need to help him out too. Malachi Toney especially. You are such a shifty athlete. Go get open. Use that athleticism and find holes in zone coverage, beat your man in man. I think he absolutely has the ability to do that. And then outside of him, CJ Daniels, I thought was really big as a chain mover in the Cotton Bowl versus Ohio State. Frequently on later downs, you look to him and he got that catch you needed. If he can be that guy versus Ole Miss, I think that's going to be a huge deal for Miami. If you have not just one guy, it's not just, okay, where's Malachi Toney? Let's triple team Malachi Toney and he can't get any space. If these other guys can start to hurt you, then you can really start to move the ball. You can be more than, I don't want to say one dimensional because it's not that you're one dimensional. You can obviously run the ball, but more than just you're honing in on one target. It's not like you're stuck going to this guy specifically. And for Ole Miss, if you stop the run and then Miami's able to throw it on you, that's going to be so demoralizing. It's, oh, well, the game plan worked and they're beating us anyway. It's, are you going to be able to slow down Miami enough for you to stay in this game? And I'm not saying you're going to have to score 40. I don't think that's reasonable at all for Ole Miss. I think if you go into this game and you tell Pete Golding, hey, your offense is giving you 24 today, you take that all day, every day, and you go see what you can make happen with that. Now, for the Ole Miss offense, it's a lot of Trinidad Chambliss. We saw down the stretch of the Georgia game, he just took over. And I feel like we've been missing quarterbacks that can do that in the CFP, especially the last couple of years. We haven't really seen any of these big game breaker type quarterbacks that just take over the game and make it theirs, where you can't really do anything about it. And we saw Trinidad Chambliss do exactly that towards the end of the Sugar Bowl versus Georgia. He was outstanding, running all over the place, making some exceptional throws. The Dejon Stribling play was huge down the stretch for Ole Miss. So can you get that kind of play from Trinidad? I think if you get even his 7 out of 10 game, it's not going to be enough versus this Miami defense. I highly doubt Ole Miss is able to run the ball between the tackles with Kawan Lacey effectively. They were able to do it against Georgia in the quarters, and they couldn't do that when they played them in the regular season. So maybe there's a logic of, oh, well, they've improved. They haven't played Miami. I know Georgia is, like, the reputation of Georgia extremely stout. It's hard to do anything on Georgia. It's harder to get push against this Miami front than it is against Georgia. And then if you can't run the ball and Miami's edge rushers can pin their ears back, Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor can just get after you, I think Chambliss is going to be cooked. Because as much as an escape artist, as he is an escape artist back there, you can't run around for 60 minutes I don't want to say like a headless chicken, but trying to make these hero plays happen every single play. If you try to do that versus this Miami front, you're going to get worn down, you're going to get tired. It's not a consistent way to move the football, and I think you're just absolutely cooked. So you need to find a way where you can get at least a little bit of a run game established with Kawan Lacey so it's not all on Chambliss. Then once you start to move to the passing game, you have more options than just, hey, Trinidad, go be a hero. Which, if he does anyway, that's great. And I think that's your path to victory. Now, there is something interesting that if you guys watch, I don't know how many of y'all tuning into this watch Josh Pate's stuff, but one scenario that he brought up that I was thinking about as well is if Miami plays slow, methodical, physical football for 60 minutes and they don't always capitalize, like you see them struggle in the red zone or something, and they only have 14 points as we get late in the third, and Ole Miss has only got 10, but they're still right in it. Does Miami playing slow football hurt them in a game where it seems like they've dominated? I think that's absolutely something that could happen. I don't predict that that's the way that this game goes. I think at the end of the day, Miami is just bigger, faster, stronger. They're playing just better right now. They're exceptional. And I know this Ole Miss team has been thriving. I would honestly love to see this Ole Miss team keep winning to stick it to Lane Kiffin. I think that would be funny, objectively, but either way, I am just super excited for this game. I do think it's funny that you have Indiana, the Midwest team, and Oregon, the West Coast team, being sent to Atlanta, and then Ole Miss and Miami, your two Southeast teams, being sent out west to the Fiesta Bowl. I think that's a little funny, but still, both of these matchups, like I've said, are great. But with all that said, I am taking Miami in this first game. I know a while before I give my pick on this one, a lot longer than usual for these type of videos, but I really just think that Miami is better at the end of the day. I really respect this Ole Miss team. I really respect the run that they've gone on. I really like a lot of their players. I love Trinidad Chambliss. I love watching him play football. I hope we get to see him in college football again next year. But at the end of the day, Miami they just feel like a buzzsaw right now going through this playoff bracket. I think they continue to win. I think Miami is headed to the national championship game. Now on to the Peach Bowl. Number 1, Indiana. Number 5, Oregon. Man, we've seen this game once already. It was a 30-20 Indiana win on October 11th, and that was in Autzen Stadium. So if you're an Oregon fan and you're watching this, you're probably expecting me to pick Indiana. And I'll go ahead and tell you now, I am. I'm taking the Hoosiers in this one. I think they're playing like the best team in college football. However, if you're an Oregon fan, you don't want to hear that Indiana is the best team in college football, and you don't want to hear that Indiana executes like no other team in the sport, and Curt Cignetti might be right up there with, if not, I would still give the edge to Kirby Smart, but Curt Cignetti is probably a top 5 easily head coach in college football right now, ruining the excuses for everyone else trying to build a program. You're hearing all that. You're coming into this game, and you're thinking, man, I feel like we have a pretty good team out here in Oregon. How do we win this game? Well, here's how you win this game, is you play perfectly. You execute perfectly. You do everything 10 out of 10 that you possibly need to do. There's no struggles on third down. There's no rapidly going for it on fourth down and missing it over and over like you see from Dan Lanning in these big games sometimes. You need it, I think, at least 60% on third and fourth down combined in this game if you want to have a chance. You need to move the ball methodically. You need to establish the run game. Jordan Davison being out, I think, is a huge issue. You have Noah Whittington, obviously, and there's some talented running backs on this team still, but not having Davison is big. Less guys is never a good thing, especially against this Indiana front who has just been wearing teams out all year long. If you're Dante Moore, this is where you go out and you make your money. If you're an NFL team sitting watching this, probably the top 2 picks in this draft going at it with Mendoza and Moore against each other. If you're Dante Moore, this is your opportunity to prove why you should be that number 1 guy. And I think he absolutely needs to take advantage of that if Oregon is going to win this game. Oregon's offensive line, there's some talent here. There's also a lot of athlete without the technique that I would like to see. Isaiah World is as big as the world, but sometimes he holds, he makes mistakes, not always the most technically sound guy. I think the best player on this O-line is Emmanuel Pregnon, who you're going to need him in the run game for sure if you're going to establish anything against Indiana. And then we've seen how good this Indiana secondary is, led by D'Angelo Pons. 5'9" out there, but hits like a truck. We saw it against Alabama with Ty Simpson, can flat out cover, and it's been well documented the receiver injuries for Oregon this year. Gary Bryant, DeCorian Moore, both will be good to go, but still no Evan Stewart. Really a bummer that you miss out on him for the entire season if you're the Ducks. So what do you do if you have 2 kind of still banged up receivers and you don't feel super comfortable about maybe the chemistry between them and your quarterback? Well, good news for you, Ducks fans, is you have possibly 2 of the best 4 tight ends in the country in Kenyon Sadiq and Jamari Johnson. I personally prefer Sadiq for whatever reason. The offense does not seem to. Johnson is a stud, and he's been playing exceptional football recently. Both of these guys are awesome. I would be running so much 12 personnel in this game if I was Will Stein, if I was Dan Lanning, and trying to keep Indiana off balance that way. Kenyon Sadiq and Jamari Johnson are both guys that you're going to be able to find matchups that you can exploit with. Not every linebacker can hang with them athletically, and certainly not every safety is big enough. And if you have 2 of those guys out there on the field, I don't think you need to be going for your huge splash plays. Indiana will hit some explosive plays, but we've seen their team, they're just methodical. They're going to buzzsaw you down. They are going to execute everything to a T like they need to. So if you're going to move the ball down the field on them, you need to have guys that, 1, are reliable. You can't afford drops, things like that. You need to be able to establish the run to set that up. And 2, I think you're going to need some big plays. Oregon is the number 1 explosive play offense in the country. That needs to show up. If that doesn't show up, I think they're absolutely in trouble. I need to see both of these tight ends have great games. I need to see the receivers be able to separate against these Indiana corners. You have such superior talent, we'll put that in quotes, on the outside with these receivers versus Indiana's corners. if you are superior talented and superior athletes, go out and prove it by getting open. They need that desperately because I don't think they're going to be extremely successful running the ball. We saw against Texas Tech, they didn't run the ball for very much per carry, although they carried it about a bazillion times against the Red Raiders. They didn't really need to do as much on offense in that game. Obviously, they pitched a shutout, so you don't need an offensive explosion. But if you get that same kind of rushing output against Indiana, I think you're in deep trouble if you're Oregon. And your defense is not pitching a shutout in this one. It is just not. And for Indiana, I think this is going to sound incredibly odd, but all Indiana has to do is just be Indiana right now. They are executing at such a high level, just buzzsawed Alabama in the Rose Bowl by 35. If you get that same level of execution, I honestly don't know who's beating them in this bracket because you can have talent all day and you can have superior star ratings and you can have whatever you want to have. But at the end of the day, if the other team is right there with you or close behind in talent on the field, and I know recruiting rankings talent doesn't match up, but you can't watch this Indiana team and tell me that these guys are not as talented. They are incredible football players, and you go throw that roster out there, and then at the same time, the culture of Indiana has them executing at a higher level than any other team in the country. Signetti's on the sideline looking upset that he's only beaten you by 30 at this point in the game. It's just an extremely tough task, I think, and I'm not sure Oregon's up to it. I think Indiana's just a bit too much, honestly, for most anyone in college football right now. But I do think also they've already beaten Oregon once. They did it in Autzen. I have no reason to believe they can't do it on a neutral site in Atlanta. So give me the Hoosiers to move on. That would set up a national championship of Indiana and Miami, which that would be an absolutely amazing game that I would be super excited for. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Who do you think wins each of these games? If you're a fan of any of these four teams, let me know in the comments what you think about what I said about your team and whether or not you think your team's going to win or whether they might be in a bit of trouble. But as always, thank you guys for tuning in. If you do enjoy the video, do make sure to like and subscribe. Really helps me out. Really do appreciate it. But until next time, I've been Micah, and I'll see you later on State of the FBS.